Welcome. Today we're going to take a look at the administration module inside of SAP Business One. So let's slide in the main menu. You can get to the administration module a couple of ways. Of course, by sliding in the main menu. You can also get it to from the drop down up here where you can also get full access to the administration menu, or at least the areas that you've been given access to. So we'll go through this real quick. A Business One is a multi-company system. And so in administration, you have the ability to add new companies on the fly. And the different companies can also be supported in different localizations. One of the first questions SAP asks you when you add a new company is what is the localization? And that will turn on the applicable tax codes and other governance required by that country. This is also where you can get to a web client. So you may have some users that all they need is they just need access to a web to run some reports, something like that. I'm going to go ahead and log in through the web just to give you a quick peek at what this looks like. And it looks like I put the wrong password in here. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so the web client is accessible again through the administration menu, but it's also accessible from the toolbar. And it does require an SAP Business One license. It does give you some key functionality like the ability to deal with sales, purchasing, business partners, your analytics, and quick links to things you might find useful. And then, of course, any user-defined objects and tables you've created. So it's not the full system through the web at this point, but it is the most used versions. And you have the ability here to adapt your filters, drill down into the details, see the order information, see more information. You can even add orders, sales orders, quotes, and purchase orders from the web deployment. Now, I would suggest you attend a different demonstration for more about this web feature, but you can access it here through the administration module. This is also where we take care of our exchange rates and indices. What that means is that Business One is also a multi-currency system. So you can set up your currencies, as many currencies as you want to track, and then you can set those exchange rates for those currencies on a day-by-day basis. Today being the 13th, I'm able to come in here and set up my currency conversions. Now, I can also import that information, and I can set up a service. So every morning at 5:30 a.m., my daily currency conversion rates are automatically established. So you'll find that here in the administration module as well. When we get into the system initialization, this is where a lot of folks spend their time during the implementation, in the beginning of the implementation. It's where you key in your company details, your company name, you answer some basic accounting information and some basic initialization information, like, do you want to support multiple languages? Do you want to allow stock to be released or sold without an item cost? Some options when it comes to actual cost by serial or batch, your home bank. Do you want to install bank statement processing, which allows us to import the bank statement and automate the reconciliation process? Other things like, are we going to enable branches? So not only is Business One a multi-company system, but within a company, you can have multiple branches, multiple locations. And what's neat about the branches is that you're also have the ability to run financials down at the branch level. So if I want to run a P&L for Houston or a balance sheet income statement, even though it's not a separate company, it's just a separate branch, you'll have that capability if you enable branches. Keep in mind, this is a one-time setting. And so there's no undoing branches. Once you turn them on, you've turned on branches, and you're going to need to live with that decision. This checkbox here is important too. Do you want to enable advanced GL account determination? That comes into play when we get into the setup module. In here is an area called GL account determination. And as we go through Business One, what you'll notice is the user never has to put in a GL account. And that's because those GL accounts have already been determined. And that's what the GL account determination is. So it's saying when we get into a purchasing scenario, use this GL account for my AP, use this account for my cash balances, and so forth. And so you'll see these throughout all of the areas of the system where financials can take place, and the ability to put in your default GL accounts. Now, there's also some advanced GL account determination where you can add rules. And so as an example, what I'm saying here is that anytime I sell any item out of my item group printers in all countries, all printers, all warehouses for all customers, all shipped to states, instead of using my default revenue account, use this one instead. And so you can also create these rules that say, don't use the standard default GL account that we've set up here, use a different one for a unique situation. So you'll find all of that here in the system initialization. Let's go back in here. This is also where you find the general settings. And this is probably the most important form in the system. This is where you come in and you're really determining how Business One's going to function for your business. Are you going to track credit limits? Where do you want to check a credit limit? Do you want to check it on order entry when you're doing a shipment, on an invoice? I just say order entry because if it gets to an invoice, we've already gone too far. We've shipped the product. And so I'd like to do it right here. But again, it's up to you. Where do you want to set commissions, right? You can set commissions at the employee level, at the item level, the customer, or all of those levels can influence commissions if you're going to be doing paying commissions. And then the approval processes. Do you enable approval processes? And what that does is that turns on these approval templates. The approval templates are a powerful way of you guys practicing fire prevention instead of firefighting. Here's a real simple example. Here's an approval template that says if any of these 4 people put an AP invoice in the system, and if the total amount of that AP invoice is greater than $250, which is my threshold, well, then it needs to go to accounting for approval. And so that's where you check this box, you're enabling all of the approval processes, and of which, of course, they're all user defined. And then some default. So when you're putting in a new customer or a new vendor, it's defaulting information so you're not having to fill out every single field every time you create a new vendor or a business partner. And I won't go through all of these, but when you're ready to initialize your GL accounts for budgeting, you check this box here. And then you can also say that we want to get a warning for an annual or a monthly budget. So if I go exceed my open to buy amount on purchase orders, or if I just exceed an accounting budget, give that user a warning. There's a number of services that you can turn on as well. Do you want to send alert for activity scheduled today? That's what we see right here. So this alert will open up a box of all of the activities that you've got going on, your calendar appointments and everything else. So I like to turn this one on. Do you want to display an inbox when the message arrives? And that's what this is right here. There's my activity inbox. So anytime a new message arrives, including my activity scheduled today, I'll get a pop-up window of those activities. Screen lock time for me, 60 minutes. If I don't touch my screen in 60 minutes, it locks. Other key fields in here are things like your default emailing service. Do you want to integrate with Outlook, or do you want to just use the SAP Business One built-in mailer? That way you could be using, AOL for who else knows, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever, and SAP will still be able to work with those email systems. The display gives you the ability to choose your skin style, to change the color of your forms. You can do what I call over 40 mode, is where you change the font size. So if you've got if the font 11 is too small, you can bump it up to any size font you want, and that'll adjust all of the screens for you. There are some path settings as to where are we going to store pictures, attachments, extensions, that kind of thing. So that's all done in the setup. And then you're going to find rules that will apply to all the modules of the system. So for example, inventory. This one here is really nice. Do we automatically create an equipment card? What will happen in that scenario, if you check that box, when you ship a serialized unit, SAP will automatically create that equipment card. And that equipment card keeps track of what that serial number was. It'll keep track of any service calls that have come in. What's the warranty on this unit? When was it sold? How was it sold? What's the document number? And then the full serial traceability. I can see this unit came in from my supplier, Far East Imports, and then it went out to Microchips. And then, of course, any attachments. So that equipment card will automatically get created anytime you ship a serialized unit. And that's where you can turn that feature on. More features here. I won't go into all of these, but this is where if you're on HANA, you can turn on the Fiori cockpit, or you can turn on the legacy cockpits to Business One. There's some cost accounting settings. How do you want to handle the cost accounting? You get 5 dimensions. Do you want them all in a unified column, or do you want them in separate columns? I like a unified column because it saves space. What that is referring to is if we go into an AP invoice as an example, what you're going to see here, let me bring up one of my AP invoices. And what you're going to see here is you're going to see for the distribution or the cost accounting, you're going to see one column versus multiple columns. So here where we see cost center, it's gonna allow me to tie any one of my dimensions into this column, my cost accounting dimensions, versus creating separate columns for each one of my dimensions. What I mean by dimensions is in the financials comes with a cost accounting module. And so you're able to create these dimensions. By having this set to one column, I get one column right here where I can choose a region, district, gender, store, central. These are just what I've chosen for my cost accounting dimensions. Now there are unlimited cost centers underneath these, but this is saying, do you want separate columns for each one of these? So I would see a region, district, gender, store, general column, or do you want to just have one? So anyways, again, I won't go through all of these. There's some pricing things here. Do you want to display a zero price in documents if this price source is an inactive price list? Do you want to remove unpriced items from your price list in the database? And then how do you handle units of measure? One of the cool features of Business One is the ability to deal with 3 different units of measure. So if I bring up an item as an example here, you've got a purchasing unit of measure, in this case, which is eaches, sales unit of measure, which could be eaches, or maybe I'll sell these in cases. And then you have an inventory unit of measure, which says when we do our inventory counting, how do we price this? But what that checkbox does is this will allow you to set up different prices for each one of your units of measure. And so the more they buy, effectively, you could reduce the price by a certain percentage, incentivizing your customers to buy more, of course. And so that's where we can turn that on, where you don't need multiple items just because you're selling in different units of measure. There's some functions you can hide. Business One also works with QR codes. So when you are putting in an order in Business One, one of the nice new features now is that you have the ability to put in any kind of QR code. Here, let me bring up an order, and I believe it's on the accounting tab. Here it is. And this is where you can put in whatever you want to show up in that cute little box, that 3-dimensional box that creates a QR code. And it could be a link back to your portal for customer payment. It could be all kinds of things. And this gives us a little description about that QR code format that you're using. So you'll find all of that in administration, all of the system initialization. How do we do our posting? What's our fiscal calendar? The full security of the system. I'll just touch on this real quick, but this is where we can create different groups of users and assign users to these groups and determine what modules they have access to. I'll expand this so you can see it gets really granular. Can a user of the inventory group export their data out to Excel, to Word, these kinds of things. Now you can also do this at the user level as well. So each user can also be set up individually within the security system. A user will only see the things in the menu that you've given them security to see. So the authorizations are in there. Other types of settings, document settings is a real popular one because this allows us to pick and choose how different documents function within the system. So for example, when you're taking a sales quotation, which would be here in the sales order module, if I'm taking a sales quote, do you want to include tax? Do you want to allow copying closed quotes to new quotes? Which means effectively you can create templates in your quoting system, template quotes, and then reuse those over and over again. So you're not ever starting from scratch. Question about duplicate PO numbers. If a customer gives you a PO number and it's a duplicate, do you want a warning about that? And just some general questions. If we go over to sales order, you can see it's a little bit different. And we get some more options here, like, do you want to activate an automatic availability check? Which means that if you go to sell something, you don't have the stock, the system will pop open a window and ask you, how do you want to handle this situation? Do you want to look at other warehouses? Do you want to sell it anyways? And it's a back order. And there's several other options as well. So let's go back to the administration module. Menu structure, you can change the entire menu structure. There's email settings. When we do the implementation, this is where we're putting in your beginning and ending opening balances for the last few years. And then this is a very, you won't find a whole lot of information on this module. It's really pretty interesting, but what SAP does is it actually delivers a wizard. And you can literally implement Business One by following this wizard. You start by configuring your company settings, any electronic document formats, you import any of your data, you configure reports and layouts, so you can come in here and tailor the user interface, and then of course import your data from Excel, legacy data, copy data between companies. So this gives you a really nice set of tools. Business One also comes with a full-blown implementation project, and you can use this as you implement Business One. This is probably the only system that you use to actually implement. It's a pretty neat idea. Configuration management, this lets you save configurations. And so if we're implementing multiple companies, you can export all the configurations of one company, import those, and you've got a fully implemented Business One system in a matter of minutes. Anyways, those items are in there. This is where you'll find the setup for each one of the modules. So every one of the modules here has setup. So for example, if we want to set up opportunities for the CRM module, well, then we can define what are the opportunity stages. What stages do you go through when you're putting in an opportunity? What that looks like then is when we get into the opportunity module, and I'll just open up my Kanban board. Here you can see those different stages, and I'm able to actually move an opportunity by dragging it from one stage and dropping it on the other. That'll update Business One for us real time. So these are all user definable. This is where you really spend a lot of the time during the implementation, is setting up each one of these modules here within Business One. So there's some sales, how do you want to handle your available to promise checking? What are your different landed costs in purchasing, countries, territories, customer groups, vendor groups, your collection terms, target groups for campaign management and marketing. So again, you'll find every module has its set of setups. Administration is also where we can import data and export data to and from other Business One systems. Business One does come with over 300 standard import templates. So if you're a company and you want to import all of your inventory, there's actually a spreadsheet already set up to do that. And so we can bring in literally as much or as little information as you want from your legacy systems. But all of this is done in the administration module. There's some utilities for running a period end, a year end, kind of duplicating layouts for print formats, those kinds of things. We talked a little bit about the approval templates here. When this is where you set up the approval templates, your best business practices. This is where we deal with our licensing. Now, one of the unique things about Business One is that these licenses are not, even though they're based on named users, you can add a license to somebody, and then you can pull that license and give it to somebody else if you choose to do that. So your licenses can be moved around. If you've got somebody on vacation, you can pull that license and give access to Business One to somebody else. There's an integration service area here. This is if we're working with the B1IF, the Business One Integration Framework. This is where those integration packages can be added. Add-ons is where all of the add-ons, the add-on modules for Business One can be turned on or turned off. So I have several add-ons running right now. Some I turn on manually, and then some I turn on, happen to come on automatically. And so you have the ability to determine which ones do you want to start when you log into Business One. But this is where all of the add-on information is stored, including stuff for the B1 usability package. And so if you have B1 usability, this is where you can come in here and manage dashboards, calendars, Kanban boards, all kinds of stuff in here, all kinds of really, really cool tools. This is also where the workflow is managed inside of the administration module. Business One actually comes with a workflow tool called the Business One Studio. And what the Business One Studio lets you do is it lets you create graphical workflows and then import those workflows into Business One. Here's an example where I'm onboarding a vendor. This is a workflow that I start, it's a workflow I start manually here. And that's what this is. I need to start this event. But you can also have conditional start events. So when a new vendor gets added, then it instantly goes over here where we request their resale number, their certifications. Then we review those. We negotiate our pricing with that vendor, and then we notify the vendor, you're now an approved vendor. Each one of these boxes is tied to a time frame before it becomes past due. We're adding or updating Business One, who's responsible for this, and the priority. So these workflows then, they live in a sandbox until you export those. Once you export that workflow, then inside of Business One in the workflow administration module here, you're then able to go into the workflow manager and import those workflows, and Business One will now just start working that way. This is also where we set up our alerts. You can have as many different alerts as you want. So for me, if I look at all of my alerts, you can see I've got quite a few, but not all of them are active right now. I only have 12 of them, a dozen that are active. So what I'm choosing to see is that, anytime a back ordered item comes in stock, it's going to send me an alert, and it's going to look every day. Now, if we drill down and look at that alert here, you can see how these alerts work. So I'm going to get an internal notification, which means I have to be logged into SAP. But not everybody has to be logged in to get an alert. You can also send emails. You can send text messages, but I believe these only work in Israel. I'm not totally sure on that, but theoretically text messages, emails, and then even faxes for those who want to get a hard copy. So anytime I get a back order in stock, this is based on a user-defined query, it's going to alert these individuals these ways, and it's going to look every day at 8 a.m. And you may have something so dynamic where you want it to look every hour or every minute, every 5 minutes, look for this user-defined event. And if you find it, notify the team. Here we're looking at individual users or folks in our supply chain, but you can also, again, do this at the group level as well. So that's where the alerts are set up. There's also an area here to set up your calendar. Now, this is a B1 usability feature. So if you do use the B1 usability toolkit, which we highly recommend, I think probably 80 to 90% of our customers use this. This gives you a fantastic calendaring solution that can also fully integrate with Microsoft Outlook. And so I'm able to view my calendar, all the activities that I have going on, when invoices are due, when quotes are due for review, service calls, and then you're able to switch down here into as many different calendars as you want. So if I am a service person, and then I could come out here and I'm able to look at all of my service calls and who's scheduled to be out where and what's going on from that perspective. So that is a walk through the administration module. This is where, again, a lion's share of the time is spent during the implementation, and it then has an impact on how all of these other core modules work within SAP Business One. Thanks for watching.